The howling wind bit through my thin clothes as I stood shivering in the snow. It was New Year's Eve. While the rest of the village celebrated with laughter and warmth, I was outside, my small hands trembling as I knocked on a heavy wooden gate. I waited, but no one answered. I reached up and pulled the iron door ring, letting it clatter a few more times. The cold was unbearable. I pulled my hands to my mouth and exhaled a frantic breath, trying to regain some feeling. My feet were even worse, stuffed into thin straw sandals. They had long since gone numb. Finally, a voice called out from the courtyard. My heart leaped. "It's me, second uncle," I shouted back. The gate creaked open just a crack. A middle-aged man with a blunt, honest face peeked his head out. It was Chin Erniu. He looked at me with a mix of surprise and pity. "Oh, it's you, Taiping," he said. "It's late. What's wrong?" I looked down, my voice small and embarrassed. "Second uncle, we ran out of charcoal. I wanted to ask if I could borrow a few pounds. When spring comes and I can go back up the mountain to cut wood, I'll pay you back. I promise." Erniu waved his hand dismissively. "A few pounds of charcoal isn't worth anything. Wait here, I'll get it for you." He took a few steps, then paused and turned back. "Taiping, have you eaten?" I gripped the hem of my jacket, my knuckles white. I ate. But Grandpa hasn't." My voice trailed off into a whisper at the end. Erniu sighed, but then he forced a smile. "Stay right there. I'll be right back." I nodded, standing alone in the dark. A fresh gust of wind made me shudder, but my heart felt a little lighter. A moment later, second uncle returned carrying a large wicker tray. He hurried to the gate and thrust it into my arms. "Take this," he said, his breath blooming like white clouds in the freezing air. I looked down. Beneath a few pounds of black charcoal lay 4 steaming white buns. My stomach growled instantly. I hadn't eaten all day, and the sight of that soft bread made my mouth water uncontrollably. "Second uncle, I can't." "Just take them," he laughed softly. "Erniu, what are you doing out there?" A sharp voice barked. A sturdy, thick-set woman marched toward the gate. Both second uncle and I froze. It was my second aunt. Her eyes darted between us, finally landing on the tray in my hands. When she saw the white buns, her face twisted in rage. "Those buns were for our son, Xiaohu," she screamed. "I don't even eat them myself, and here you are giving them away like a big shot." She lunged forward and snatched 2 of the buns right out of the tray. "Mom, is the roasted goose ready? I want goose, not those stupid buns." A chubby boy in a brand-new padded coat waddled out of the house. He looked at the bread in his mother's hand with pure disgust. "Oh, my darling, why are you out here?" she cooed, her voice shifting from a screech to a honeyed tone. "It's cold. Go back inside. I want goose." The boy stomped his feet, looking like he was about to cry. Fine. The goose is almost ready," she promised. "We'll just give these buns to the dog." Right in front of us, she tossed the 2 white buns into the dog crate under the eaves. I watched the dog snap them up. Second uncle groaned and looked away, his face full of helpless frustration. I bit my lip, clutching the tray tighter. I didn't want to cause more trouble. I looked up at second uncle and forced a smile. "Thank you, second uncle. I'm going now." "Be careful on the way back," he said, waving me off. "Leave a crack in the window when you light the charcoal. And make sure your grandpa is covered up. Erniu, get inside now, or you're sleeping on the floor." The woman yelled from the house. "Coming," he shouted back. He gave me one last apologetic look and slammed the gate shut. The last bit of light vanished. The world was swallowed by the black night and the falling snow. Only a tiny, flickering glow remained in the distance, the small thatched hut I called home. With this charcoal and these 2 buns, Grandpa will definitely get better, I whispered to myself. I wasn't scared of the dark anymore. I tucked my head down and hurried toward the light, hopping over snowdrifts to keep my blood moving. I pushed open the door to our hut. The wood groaned. "Taiping, is that you?" A raspy, weak voice called out. "It's me, Grandpa." I rubbed my frozen cheeks, trying to make my face look cheerful before I stepped behind the curtain. The room smelled heavily of bitter herbs. Without a fire, it was just as cold inside as it was outside. In the corner, on a bed made of rough wooden planks, lay an old man. He was so thin he looked like skin stretched over a skeleton, huddled under a tattered quilt that was losing its stuffing. "Grandpa, look." Second uncle lent us charcoal and gave us 2 buns. "We can toast them." I poured the charcoal into the small stove, my heart racing with excitement. Good, good, he whispered. His eyes were cloudy with age and sickness, but when he looked at me, a spark of life returned to them. Taiping, these last few years, following me, you've suffered so much. Grandpa, I'm not suffering, I said, shaking my head as I lit the fire. Not at all. You silly child, he sighed, reaching out to pat my head with a trembling hand. If you hadn't been here to take care of me, I would have been gone a long time ago. Don't say things like that, I told him firmly, focusing on the buns warming over the new heat. You're going to live to be 100. Taiping, he said suddenly, his voice turning serious. Have you ever heard of the immortals? I looked up, my eyes wide. I have. The storyteller at the village entrance says there are immortals on Yunlu Mountain. He said they came down a few years ago to kill a snake demon in Qingshui town. They can fly and move through the earth, and they don't even feel the wind or the cold. The old man chuckled weakly. Tell me, do you want to be like them? To live forever? To fly? Of course I do, I answered without hesitation. But then I looked down at my dirty hands. But the storyteller said you need a spirit bone to cultivate. He said if you're born with one, your name appears on a celestial register, and the immortals come to find you. The storyteller told me the immortals only come down to collect those with a spirit bone. Without one, you're just a commoner with mortal bone, and cultivation is impossible. I couldn't hide the disappointment in my voice as I spoke. Taiping. Grandpa hesitated for a moment, then looked at me with a sudden, piercing seriousness. He lowered his voice until it was barely a whisper. If there was a chance for you to gain a celestial rank, but it meant risking your life, would you be willing? My eyes went wide. A chance for me to join the immortals? I thought about it hard. I looked at my small, dirty hands, and then back at Grandpa's pale face. Grandpa, if that chance really exists, I want to try. I met his gaze, my voice steady. Why? He asked, a small smile playing on his lips. You could die, Taiping. Because if I become an immortal, I can cure your illness, I said. I didn't even have to think about it. It was the only thing that mattered. Grandpa froze. Then, a genuine smile broke across his face. Taiping, take this. He struggled to lift his arm, trembling as he pressed a weathered wooden box into my hands. I stared at it, confused. Ever since I could remember, Grandpa had guarded this box like his life depended on it. He never let anyone see what was inside. Open it, he panted, his voice strained. I nodded and carefully pried the lid open. Inside sat two things, a single, wax-covered red pill and a plain-looking yellow bean. A Taoist priest gave me that red pill 10 years ago, Grandpa explained. It's called a spirit bone pill. If you swallow it, it will transform your mortal bone into a spirit bone. Your name will appear on the celestial register. I couldn't believe it. There was actually medicine in this world that could do that? Grandpa nodded, his expression grave. He told me that in this vast world, anything was possible. But if it's so amazing, why didn't you take it? I asked. Grandpa let out a bitter laugh. The priest told me it only works on children between the ages of 9 and 11. When I got it, I was already 63. Your father and uncles were already grown men. It was useless to us. I could see the regret in his eyes. Who wouldn't want a chance at immortality? But his expression darkened as he continued. There is a catch, Taiping. The effect only lasts 6 months. If you can't reach the Qi transformation stage within half a year, the sect will realize you're a fraud. They'll strike your name from the register. At best, they'll kick you out. At worst, they'll wipe your memories and turn you into an idiot. I felt a chill run down my spine. An idiot? I thought about it for a long time, the silence of the room heavy around us. Finally, I looked at him and nodded. I still want to try? In my mind, it was simple. If I got into a sect and learned magic, I could save him. It was worth the risk. Good, Grandpa whispered. He took the pill, peeled away the wax coating, and held it to my lips. Eat. I swallowed it in one gulp. A wave of warmth flooded my chest, spreading through my body like a pair of gentle hands. But after a few seconds, the feeling faded. Is that it? I asked. Grandpa smiled. In a few days, the immortals will come for you. His eyes were full of conflicting emotions, pride, joy, and a deep, gnawing fear. He knew the path ahead was treacherous. If I didn't make it in 6 months, my life would be ruined. He remembered what the old Taoist had said before leaving. The path of the mortal world is long. The search for immortality is rare. If one does not taste 1,000 dangers, how can the gates of heaven ever open? One thought, and life ends. His gaze hardened. This was the right choice for me. Grandpa, what about the bean? I asked, picking up the small yellow seed. The priest left that too, he said, his voice growing weaker. He didn't say what it was for. Only that if you make it into a sect, you should plant it in the spiritual soil of the mountains. Then, you'll find another great fortune. He started coughing violently. I rushed to his side, trying to help him sit up. Grandpa, drink some water. Stop talking. Taiping. Hide the bean, he gasped, grabbing my wrist with surprising strength. Don't tell anyone what I told you tonight. Not a soul. I won't, I promised, nodding frantically. I won't tell anyone. You are smart, Taiping, but the world is cruel. You must be careful. Suddenly, he grabbed my shoulders and pulled me close. Blood flecked his lips. He stared into my eyes with every ounce of strength left in his body. Taiping, I spent my whole life looking for the path to immortality, only to be trapped by this mortal bone. You have to succeed. Do it for everyone born without a chance. Then, his body went stiff. He slumped back onto the bed. Grandpa? My heart turned to ice. I reached out a trembling hand to his nose. There was no breath. The light in my world went out. I stood there, frozen, as tears began to sting my eyes. I didn't have a grandpa anymore. When my parents died years ago, I didn't cry. When I tumbled down a cliff while gathering herbs, I didn't cry. Even when I was trapped in a cave by wolves for days without food, I didn't cry. I had stayed strong because I wasn't alone. I had him. But that night, I wailed. That same night, miles away on the peak of Yunlu Mountain, a name suddenly flickered into existence on the spirit bone monument of the Qingxian sect, Su Taiping. In Qingyou village at the foot of the mountain, a boy named Su Taiping has awakened a spirit bone. An elder shouted, "Notify the master of the 7th peak immediately. Send a disciple to fetch the boy." The elder tucked a letter into the beak of a white crane standing by the monument. The crane spoke with a human voice, promising to obey, before spreading its wings and disappearing into the night sky. 6 days passed. What? You're going to sell Taiping? My second uncle, Su Erniu, stared at his wife in disbelief. My aunt, a woman with a hard face and a mean streak, hissed at him to be quiet. What do you mean sell? She snapped. Being a servant for the Bai family is an opportunity people beg for. But he'll be a slave, Uncle argued, looking conflicted. So what? The Bai family eats well and lives well. I've already taken the deposit. It's settled. Uncle sighed, unable to win an argument against her. He just hung his head and nodded. Where is he now? Aunt asked. Still in the morning hall, Uncle replied, wiping his mouth. It's the 7th day since the funeral. The kid wants to keep watch over the old man one last night. The carriage from the Bai family was already waiting at the village entrance. My aunt glared at my Uncle Erniu, telling him to get me back immediately. Uncle was shocked it was happening so fast. She explained that the Bai family's young master needed a study attendant by next month, and this was a rare opening. She didn't want to hear any more excuses. Uncle scratched his head, looking conflicted. Today was the 7th day since my grandfather's funeral, the traditional day for the soul's return. He asked if I could stay just one more night. My aunt's face twisted with frustration. She poked him hard in the forehead, asking if a funeral was more important than silver. Then she leaned in and whispered the price, 30 taels. 30 taels of silver. Uncle's eyes widened, his hesitation vanishing instantly. He nodded sharply and hurried off to find me. Half an hour later, I stood at the entrance of Qingyou village. I looked back toward the morning hall one last time, my heart heavy. I asked Uncle if we could really not wait until tomorrow. My aunt stepped in with a fake, sugary smile. She told me this was a once-in-a-lifetime chance, and that if I didn't leave now, the opportunity would be gone by morning. I looked at her coldly. I knew exactly what was happening. I had grown up fast, and I wasn't blind to their schemes. She wasn't worried about my future. She was worried she wouldn't get her payday if I stayed. I didn't fight them, though. Grandfather was gone. I had nothing left here. Maybe the Bai manor would be better than living with people who saw me as a burden. My uncle snapped at me for being disrespectful, telling me to get in the carriage. The Bai family steward called out from the driver's seat, warning us that rat demons had been spotted nearby lately. We needed to reach Qingzhou Ridge before dark. Before I could say another word, my uncle and aunt grabbed my arms and hauled me toward the carriage. I didn't resist, but a cold bitterness settled in my chest. The steward pulled out a contract and made me press my thumbprint onto it. He waved the paper in the air, declaring that from this day forward, I was a slave of the Bai family. I had no more connection to the Su family or this village. I nodded blankly. I looked up at the sky. 6 days had passed since the spirit bone awakened. It seemed the pill grandfather gave me had failed, or perhaps the immortals just didn't care. I wasn't even that disappointed. My main reason for wanting to be an immortal was to cure grandfather, and he was already gone. Suddenly, a villager screamed, "Look, a white crane. It's bigger than a water buffalo." Everyone looked up. High above, a massive white crane circled the village. 2 figures stood firmly on its back. "Immortals," I whispered. The crane let out a sharp cry and dove. 2 people descended from the clouds, landing softly in front of us. It was a man in a pale blue robe and a woman in a vibrant red dress. The man looked noble and sharp, while the woman was so beautiful she seemed to make the surrounding scenery fade into gray. The young man bowed politely to the crowd. He announced they were disciples from the Qingxian sect on Yunlu Mountain. They were here to find a boy. The villagers gasped. These were real immortals from the legendary peak nearby. The woman in red smiled at the crowd, her eyes scanning the faces. "Is there a boy here named Su Taiping?" she asked. A few villagers, recovering from their shock, pointed straight at me. "That's him. That's Su Taiping." The woman stepped toward me, her face lighting up with joy. "Are you Su Taiping?" I nodded slowly. I had a feeling I knew why they were here. She turned to the man, who held up a jade slip glowing with a soft green light. He confirmed the resonance. I was the one. My Uncle Ernie finally found his voice. He trembled, asking if I had done something wrong. My aunt grabbed his arm and pulled him back, putting distance between them and me. The other villagers backed away too, whispering. They assumed the immortals were here to punish me for some crime. The woman in red laughed softly and shook her head. "We aren't here to punish him. We're here to take him to the mountain." "To the mountain?" Uncle stammered. The young man explained calmly. "Su Taiping has birthed a spirit bone. His name is now in the celestial registry. We are taking him to join the Qingxian sect." Uncle stood there like he'd been struck by lightning. He started muttering to himself about the Su family finally producing an immortal. The 2 disciples ignored the crowd and reached out their hands toward me. "Come with us, little Taiping," the woman said, her voice warm and sweet. "From now on, you're our junior brother of the 7th peak." For the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of warmth. It felt like I might actually have a family again. I reached out to take her hand, but suddenly, my aunt stepped forward. My aunt didn't let go. She grabbed the woman's arm, blocking her path. She looked at the 2 disciples with a fake, greasy smile. "Wait, immortals. You can't just take our Taiping away. He's the backbone of the Su family. He's supposed to become a top scholar and bring honor to our ancestors." I felt a chill run through me. My aunt had always called me a money loser and a curse. She never cared about my future, let alone ancestral honor. The disciples didn't know the truth. They thought she was just a grieving relative. The young man shook his head. "A mere scholar's title cannot compare to a disciple of the Qingxian sect. But since you are his family, take this gold ingot as a gift for our first meeting." He pulled a heavy gold piece from his sleeve and held it out. My heart sank. I opened my mouth to tell him the truth, but the manager from the Bai family carriage suddenly jumped down. He grabbed my arm with one hand and waved a piece of paper with the other. "This boy has already been sold to the Bai family," the manager shouted. "The contract is right here in black and white. He belongs to us. That gold should be mine." The 2 disciples frowned. My aunt turned pale and started screaming. "You're lying. I only sent him there to work, not as a slave." She tried to snatch the paper away. My uncle joined in, and the 3 of them started a frantic tug-of-war over my life. "Enough!" the male disciple roared. A wave of invisible pressure surged from his body like a pouncing tiger. The air grew heavy. My aunt and the manager froze, trembling in silence. The woman in red stepped toward me, her voice softening. "Taiping, tell me, is it true? Were you sold as a slave?" I looked into her eyes and nodded. Yes. As I said the word, I felt a weight lift off my chest. It was like a physical chain had finally snapped. The woman's eyes filled with pity. "You little white-eyed wolf," my aunt shrieked, lunging at me with her claws out. After all these years, the woman in red didn't even look at her. She flicked her sleeve, and a gust of wind sent my aunt flying backward. "You might be immortals, but you have to be reasonable," the manager stammered, backing away but still holding the paper. "I have the contract signed by Sue Ernie himself. Red thumbprints and everything. This boy is by family property." The male disciple took the contract and scanned it. A cold smile touched his lips. "A disciple of the Qingxian sect is only worth 30 silver taels to you?" The woman in red turned red with fury. "You sold your own nephew for 30 silver? And now you dare ask us for favors? You deserve a beating." She raised her hand again. "Immortals, mercy! Mercy!" my uncle and aunt wailed, dropping to their knees. "Junior sister, remember master's instructions," the man said, placing a hand on her shoulder. He looked at the manager. "If we want to redeem him, what is a fair price in your eyes?" The manager gulped. He hesitated, then greedily held up 3 fingers. 300 taels. "Still only 300? The disciple laughed coldly. He tossed a heavy cloth bag at the manager's feet. It hit the ground with a metallic thud. The manager opened it and gasped. It was filled with pure gold nuggets. The villagers crowded around, their eyes nearly popping out of their heads. "Is that enough?" the disciple asked. "Yes, more than enough. This is worth 3,000 silver taels." The manager hugged the bag like a lover. My uncle and aunt turned white. They weren't educated, but they knew the difference between 30 and 3,000. "Wait, that money shouldn't go to the Bai family," my aunt screamed, throwing herself at the disciple. He shifted slightly, and she face-planted into the dirt. My uncle turned to me, reaching for my hand. "Taiping, tell them the 3,000 belongs to your uncle." The woman in red grabbed my hand first. In a blur of movement, we were suddenly 5 feet away. Seeing they couldn't get to me, my aunt and uncle turned on the manager. They started a fist fight right there in the dirt, screaming about the gold. The male disciple ignored the chaos. He shredded the contract into 1,000 pieces and held out his hand to me. "The ties of the mortal world are severed. Are you willing to follow us to the cloud furnace and seek the path of the immortals?" I looked at the fighting couple, then at the 2 disciples. The last bit of hesitation in my heart vanished. "I am," I said firmly. The man laughed. With a wave of his sleeve, a gentle wind lifted me and the woman into the air. We landed softly on the back of the giant crane. "My name is Du Guqing Xiao," the man said, "second disciple of the 7th peak." "And I'm Zhao Ling Long," the woman added with a grin. "7th disciple of the 7th peak. From now on, I'm your senior sister." "Taiping greets senior brother and senior sister," I said, bowing as best I could on a flying bird. As we soared into the sea of clouds, the village vanished. Below us, my aunt and uncle were still losing their fight against the manager, left with nothing but the dust. By sunset, I was staring at the peaks of the legendary Cloud Furnace Mountain. My new life had begun. To be precise, the Cloud Furnace Mountain people knew in the mortal world was just an entrance. It was like an iceberg in the frozen sea. What you saw above the surface was only a tiny fraction of the whole. The real Cloud Furnace 7 peaks were hidden, shrouded in thick mist year-round. You needed a spiritual crane to guide you in and out. As we prepared to dive into the sea of clouds near the summit, Ling Long leaned in, her eyes sparkling with excitement. She started telling me how massive the real mountain actually was. I listened, feeling my curiosity grow with every word. "The peaks of Cloud Furnace stretch for 10,000 miles, Qing Xiao added. He had been meditating beside us, but now he opened his eyes. "The main peak is over 10,000 feet high. Its total area is likely no smaller than your entire Liang Kingdom." "No smaller than the Liang Kingdom?" I whispered. My understanding of the world was being shattered all over again. "Oh, definitely," Ling Long nodded with a grin. "In the cultivation world, there are many hidden realms like this. Our Qingxian sect is only considered a third-rate cultivation sect." "A third-rate sect? Then what's above that?" I started to ask, but a sudden roar of wind cut me off. The crane let out a sharp, piercing cry. A violent gale slammed into us. Junior brother. This is the barrier wind triggered by the mountain's protective array. Ling Long shouted over the howling air. She grabbed my hand tight. Hold on to me, or you'll fall. I nodded and gripped her hand with everything I had. Her palm felt surprisingly soft, like fine silk. In the blink of an eye, the turbulence vanished. The sky opened up into a brilliant, washed blue. Below us lay an endless range of soaring peaks and floating mountains suspended right in the middle of the clouds. This is the real cloud furnace Immortal Mountain, Zhao Ling Long said, standing up proudly to look out over the horizon. Brother Qing Xiao, Sister Ling Long. A sweet, soft voice called out from our side. I turned and saw a streak of clear light flying through the clouds. A slender, beautiful woman was riding a giant jade gourd. A small girl sat behind her. Sister Ziyan. Ling Long waved happily. Shortly after you left the mountain, the Spirit Bone Monument reacted again, Ziyan said, smiling as she looked at the girl behind her. My sixth peak has also gained a disciple chosen by the monument. The little girl wore a white dress. Her skin was as pale and flawless as jade. From a distance, she looked like a perfect porcelain doll. What a beautiful little thing, Ling Long whispered in admiration. Congratulations, Qing Xiao said, bowing slightly toward Ziyan. The sixth peak has found another great talent. I suppose you'll be taking the top spot at the next 7 peaks competition. Ziyan laughed, a hint of natural charm in her eyes. She patted the girl's shoulder. Bu Yu, come greet senior brother Qing Xiao and senior sister Ling Long. The girl gave a clumsy, shy bow. Bu Yu greets senior brother and senior sister. No need for formalities, Qing Xiao said warmly. Ling Long patted my head and nudged me forward. Taiping, come meet Sister Ziyan from the 6th peak and your future junior sister. The 6th peak is the wealthiest of the 7. You'd better stay on her good side. I was a bit overwhelmed, but I bowed respectfully. Taiping greets Sister Ziyan and Sister Bu Yu. How polite, Ziyan laughed. Once you become an official disciple of the 7th peak, I'll gift you a foundation pill. I froze, not knowing how to respond. Ling Long quickly pushed my head down for another bow. Hurry up and thank her. Thank you, Sister Ziyan, I stammered. Qing Xiao, are you heading to the Dragon Gate Hall next? Ziyan asked. Yes, Qing Xiao nodded. Before Taiping joins the 7th peak, he has to have his spirit bone tested at the Dragon Gate Hall. Then I'll go with you, Ziyan said, steering her jade gourd alongside our crane. Hey, Sister Ziyan, Ling Long said with a mischievous smirk. Why don't you ride the crane with my brother, and I'll take Bu Yu on the gourd. Zhao Ling Long, are you looking for a beating? Ziyan's face turned bright red. One more word of nonsense, and I'll kick you off this mountain myself. Qing Xiao glared at Ling Long, who just laughed and hugged my shoulder. My face felt a bit hot too. It was the first time I had ever been held so closely by a girl. But despite the shyness, something else was weighing on my mind. Senior brother, I asked quietly, why do we have to test the spirit bone? Even though you were chosen by the monument and don't need an entrance exam, we still need to know your bone's type and grade. Qing Xiao explained. It helps guide your future cultivation. Ling Long held up her fingers to count for me. In this world, having a spirit bone means you can cultivate, but they aren't all the same. Most common are the 5 elements: gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. Then there are rare ones like ice, lightning, and wind. She paused, looking at me. As for grades, there are 4: purple, gold, black, and white. Purple is the rarest, called the heaven bone. White is, well, it's the most useless. Why is white the most useless? I asked. It's called a false spirit bone, Ling Long sighed. You can cultivate with it, but the speed is agonizingly slow. Most people with white bones can't even break through the opening realm after decades of trying. It's barely different from being an ordinary mortal. I hesitated. I knew the truth. My name was on that monument because of the pill my grandfather gave me. I didn't actually have a spirit bone at all. If I'm tested and it turns out to be a white bone, will I be kicked out? I asked. Theoretically, yes, Ling Long said confidently. But don't worry. Since you were chosen by the monument, you're at least a gold or black grade. There's no way you have a white bone. She's right, Qing Xiao added, patting my head. Monument disciples are usually elites. And even if it is a white bone, You get to stay and train for 3 years. If you pass a test then, you can still stay. I forced a smile and nodded. I felt a small sense of relief knowing I wouldn't be thrown down the mountain immediately, but the knot in my stomach wouldn't go away. We were heading straight for the Dragon Gate Hall, and my secret was about to be put to the test. I felt a small sense of relief, but it didn't last long. We reached the Dragon Gate Hall on Xian Kong Mountain moments later. The place was stunning. Flowers bloomed in every direction, and exotic spirit beasts roamed the grounds. But the path to the summit was incredibly steep. If Qing Xiao and Ling Long hadn't been there to help me, it would have taken me days to reach the top. Who goes there? A voice boomed from inside the hall. It was old, majestic, and hit me like a physical wave. Duo Gu Qing Xiao of the 7th Peak. Zhao Ling Long of the 7th Peak. Su Zi Yan of the 6th Peak. Greetings, Elder Black Dragon. My seniors bowed deeply with immense respect. I didn't know who this elder was, but I followed their lead and bowed toward the hall. Beside me, the girl named Buyu remained perfectly still. She was eerily calm. Why have you come? The voice asked again. Sister Ziyin and I have each brought a disciple chosen by the monument, Qing Xiao answered respectfully. We asked the elder to test their spirit bones before we return to our peaks. Come in, the voice commanded. We stepped inside, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. Sitting in the center of the hall was a massive man on a giant meditation mat. He was a mountain of a person. I felt like a tiny insect standing before him. He wore a purple silk robe, but his head wasn't human. It was the terrifying, scaly head of a flood dragon. Ling Long whispered in my ear. She told me he was a spirit dragon from the Sunyang River who had cultivated for 500 years to take human form. He was a guardian of our sect. She told me not to be afraid, that he was actually kind. I nodded, but my heart was still hammering against my ribs. Sister Ziyin, what a coincidence. A man in white robes stepped out from behind the elder. He was leading a young boy dressed in expensive, royal silks. Sister Ziyin's face darkened immediately. Senior brother Jean, she said, her voice cold. What are you doing here? Qing Xiao didn't look happy either. I could tell right away that they loathed this man. I was hunting demons in the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom. The man, Jin Hiji, said with a smirk. I found this little prince who possesses a spirit bone. I brought him back to have it tested. He didn't even look at Qing Xiao. His eyes wandered shamelessly over Zi Yan and Ling Long. Ling Long, you've really grown up since I last saw you, he said with a greasy smile. Qing Xiao stepped in front of her, blocking his view. Jin Hiji, if you want to keep those eyes, I suggest you look elsewhere. Oh, I'd like to see you try. Shut up, both of you. Elder Black Dragon opened his eyes. They were golden slits that radiated pure power. This isn't the 7th Peak. This is my Dragon Gate Hall. Qing Xiao and Jin Hiji both backed down instantly. Bring the children forward, the elder commanded. He reached into his sleeve and pulled out a dragon pearl. It was as big as my head, clear as amber, and pulsing with ripples of green light. I stepped forward with Buyu and the arrogant prince. Place your hands on the pearl, one by one, the elder said. I'll go first, the prince shouted. He pushed ahead and slammed his hand onto the sphere. The elder frowned at the boy's rudeness, but didn't stop him. Close your eyes. Don't open them until I tell you. Golden light began to flow from the elder into the pearl. The light intensified, wrapping around the prince in a swirling cocoon. Suddenly, a low hum vibrated through the air. The pearl erupted in a brilliant golden glow, and orange flames began to dance around its surface. A fire attribute gold spirit bone. Jin Hiji burst out laughing. A gold spirit bone. Incredible. The elder looked pleased. Having a disciple with a gold spirit bone was a huge win for the sect. The prince opened his eyes, looking incredibly smug. I stayed quiet. I wasn't jealous. I was just terrified of what would happen when it was my turn. What is your name, boy? The elder asked. I am the 9th prince of the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom. My name is Yixian. Fine. Move aside. The elder interrupted, clearly annoyed by the kid's arrogance. He pointed at Buyu. You. Next. Buyu nodded. She walked up with small, steady steps and placed her tiny hand on the pearl. Sister Zi Yin looked tense. I could tell she was nervous. Even though the monument rarely made mistakes, the difference between a regular bone and a top-tier one was life-changing. Another hum filled the hall. The pearl lit up with golden light again. But this time, it wasn't fire. Blue sparks began to crackle and hiss around the pearl like tiny snakes of lightning. Lightning? Zian gasped. It's a lightning mutation. And it's gold grade. Even the elder laughed out loud this time. His voice was so powerful it made the walls tremble. A fire and a lightning bone, both gold grade. Excellent. Everyone was cheering and congratulating Ziyan. The hall was filled with excitement. And then, the elder's golden eyes turned toward me. It was time. Elder Heilong laughed, his voice booming with hope for the sect's future. I watched him, my heart heavy but my face calm. As Buyu walked past me, returning from her successful test, I leaned in and spoke softly. Congratulations, Sister Buyu. She turned to look at me and gave a small nod. Thank you. We were both the type of people who didn't show much emotion, though she seemed even more composed than I was. Little guy, it's your turn. Elder Heilong's voice snapped me back to reality. I looked up. His massive, vertical pupils were fixed on me, full of expectation. Beside me, Qing Xiao and Ling Long tensed up. I could feel their eyes boring into my back. Yes, Elder. I met his gaze and nodded. My heart was pounding, but I kept my expression blank. Under the watchful eyes of everyone in the hall, I stepped forward. I reached out and pressed my palm against the dragon pearl in the elder's hand. I closed my eyes and tried to focus. A warm energy began to flow, slowly wrapping around my hand. A moment later, I felt the pearl vibrate. I opened my eyes. The once clear pearl had turned a dull, sickly white. It looked exactly like the color of a bleached animal bone you'd find rotting by the side of the road. I sighed inwardly. My guess was right. The pill my grandfather gave me could put my name on the monument, but it couldn't give me a real spirit bone. A white bone, Ling Long whispered. Her eyes were wide with disbelief. Qing Xiao didn't say a word, but the shock on his face was just as clear. The monument actually picked a white bone? Your seventh peak's luck is as bad as ever. Jin Heji burst out laughing. His voice was dripping with mockery. You. Ling Long started to snap back, but Qing Xiao grabbed her arm, stopping her. Elder Heilong, could you please test him one more time? Qing Xiao asked, his voice pleading. Qing Xiao, you know better than that. My pearl does not make mistakes. The elder pulled the pearl back, his voice cold and commanding. Qing Xiao let out a long, heavy sigh. Ziyan, Heji, take your new disciples and go. There is nothing left for you here. The elder said, looking at the other two leaders. Elder, we'll take our leave then. Jin Heji grinned and grabbed Yixian's hand. As they walked away, I heard him laughing. A white bone. The Qingxian sect wouldn't actually keep a piece of trash like that, would they? My peaks certainly won't. Their voices faded as they reached the door, leaving Qing Xiao and Ling Long fuming with rage. Sister Yin saw how upset they were and chose to leave quietly with Buyu. Once they were gone, Elder Heilong looked down at me. I stood there, silent and still. A white bone has no right to be a disciple of the Seven Peaks, he said firmly. You have two choices. You can stay at the foot of the mountain as an unofficial disciple for 3 years and try the selection again then. Or, you can leave the mountain immediately. He was waiting for my answer. Taiping, you decide for yourself, Ling Long started to say, wanting to give me advice, but the elder cut her off with a sharp look. She bit her lip and went silent. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked at Qing Xiao and Ling Long. If I pass the selection in 3 years, can I still join the 7th peak? Can I still be your junior brother? Qing Xiao looked at me with a serious expression. There was a hint of guilt in his eyes for not being able to bring me up the mountain today. I can promise you that. If you pass, the gates of the 7th peak will always be open to you. Taiping, passing that selection is incredibly hard, Ling Long warned, shaking her head with worry. I gave her a small smile and turned back to the elder. Elder, I want to stay at the foot of the mountain for 3 years. I had made a promise to my grandfather. I wasn't going to break it. The elder nodded, his face indifferent. He pulled out a jade slip and handed it to me. Take this. Someone will take you down and explain what you need to do. Thank you, Elder. I took the slip. Elder Heilong, I brought this child here. Ling Long stepped forward. Please let me be the one to take him down and get him settled. The elder hesitated. Disciples of the 7 Peaks are not allowed to wander the base of the mountain or interfere with worldly affairs. However, since you were the one who brought him, I will make an exception. Ling Long beamed with joy. Thank you. You have 2 hours, the elder warned, his eyes narrowing. And don't try any tricks. I don't care what happens on the peaks, but down below, I can feel it if even a single blade of grass is broken. Don't worry, elder. I promise I won't do anything extra, Ling Long said, sticking her tongue out playfully. A few minutes later, we stood outside the Dragon Gate Hall. Junior sister, I have to report this to Master, Qing Xiao said, looking at me. I'm leaving Tai Ping in your hands. Make sure he's settled well. It won't be easy for us to visit him once we're back on the peak. Don't worry, senior brother. I'll handle everything. Qing Xiao nodded, hopped onto a jade flute, and vanished into the sky like a streak of light. Let's go, Tai Ping, Ling Long said, patting my shoulder. First, we'll get you registered. Then, we'll find you a place where you can earn merit points while you practice. Merit points? I asked, confused. Ling Long sighed. Outer disciples at the foot of the mountain have to earn merit points every year. If you don't earn enough, you get kicked out of the sect. How do I earn them? Every outer disciple gets a small house and some land, either a spirit field or a medicine garden, she explained. You can raise livestock or grow spirit grain and herbs. When they're ready, you sell them to the sect for merit points. I nodded. I see. So merit points are basically like money in the mortal world. You could say that. She smiled and took my hand. Come on, let's go to the West Wind Pavilion and see what's available for you. We arrived at the West Wind Pavilion, the office that handled all the affairs for outer disciples. An old man with white hair handed a wooden box and a white jade slip to Ling Long. Sister Ling Long, the registration is complete. Here is his bronze mirror and the cultivation slip. Keep this mirror safe, Tai Ping, Ling Long said, handing me the box. It's your identity as an unofficial disciple, and it's how you'll receive your missions. The old man from the West Wind Pavilion smiled at me. He explained that this bronze mirror was a magical tool used to listen to the elders' lectures. Since outer disciples didn't get personal instruction from masters like the inner disciples did, we had to use these mirrors on the 1st and 15th of every month to watch the elders speak. I nodded, absorbing the information, then picked up the jade slip. What about this? That's a transmission slip, the old man said. It contains a basic heart method for chi cultivation. When you're ready, just clear your mind and press it against your forehead. Ling Long leaned in, adding that the slip also contained all the sect rules and detailed instructions on how to use the mirror. She told me I could look through it once I got settled. Senior Lu, Ling Long said, turning her attention to the pavilion master. Do you have any good positions left under your jurisdiction? The old man, Pavilion Master Lu, hesitated. In the outer sect, the best way to earn merit points was definitely working in the spirit medicine gardens. The work was light, and the pay was high. Senior Lu, this boy is a distant relative of mine, Ling Long said, her voice turning very serious. If you can help him out, I, Zhao Ling Long of the 7th Peak, will owe you a personal favor. I saw Pavilion Master Lu's eyes light up. He knew exactly who Ling Long was, a direct disciple of the 7th Peak Master with a limitless future. A favor from her was worth a fortune. Since Fairy Ling Long has spoken, I will certainly help, Lu said with a nod. Ling Long let out a sigh of relief. I looked at her with pure gratitude, silently promising to remember this kindness. To be honest, Lu continued, pointing to a map on the wall. There is one garden left in the mountains west of Cloud Furnace. It's in a place called Green Bamboo Residence, about 3,000 miles from here in the Cloud Lacquer Valley. It has 3 acres of spirit fields and a small house for you to live in while you practice. Half an hour later, as Ling Long and I flew away on a giant crane, a manager at the West Wind Pavilion approached the old master. Master, didn't some cultivators report evil spirits appearing at Green Bamboo Residence? The manager asked worriedly. If something happens to the boy, how will we explain it to Fairy Ling Long? Old Lu shook his head dismissively. Just rumors. Some disciples from the 4th Peak checked it out recently and found nothing. Besides, even if something does happen, he's just a kid from outside the mountains. If he dies, he dies. Barely half of the new outer disciples survive the first few years anyway. If I had to be responsible for every death, I wouldn't be able to do my job. The manager bowed and backed away, silenced. Another half-hour passed before the crane spoke in a human voice. Fairy Ling Long, we have arrived at Green Bamboo Residence. The crane's wings flared, and we landed softly. I looked up and saw a small courtyard with mud walls tucked inside a lush, green bamboo forest. Dried bamboo leaves were piled so high they nearly buried the doorstep. It was quiet. Too quiet. Taiping, you're on your own now, Ling Long said. She looked at the sky, her expression a bit sad. My time is up. I have to meet Elder Black Dragon. Work hard. Try to make it to the 7th peak soon. I nodded, my young face showing a determination that didn't match my age. I believe in you, she said, patting my cheek. She pulled an ancient flute and a small pouch from her sleeve. This flute can summon spirit birds nearby. The pouch has 30 merit coins, the starting allowance for new disciples. If you need supplies, 1 coin will pay a spirit bird to fetch them for you. Don't waste them. Your garden is likely overgrown, and you'll need those coins for seeds and food. I won't waste them, Sister Ling Long, I promised, taking the items. Until we meet again. Take care. She climbed back onto the crane and waved. Goodbye, I shouted, waving back. The crane snapped its wings, creating a gust of wind that sent it shooting into the clouds. Ling Long looked down at my shrinking figure and sighed. Growing up in the sect, she knew the truth. Out of thousands of outer disciples, barely 1 in 1,000 ever made it to the inner peaks. Most were weeded out within 3 years. Once she was gone, I pushed open the gate. I walked straight through the dusty house to the backyard. Just as she suspected, the medicine garden was a mess of waist-high weeds and barren soil. Totally ruined, I muttered, but I wasn't there to farm herbs yet. I carefully reached into my robe and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside was a porcelain bottle, and inside that bottle was the single soybean my grandfather had given me. He told me that if I planted it on the immortal mountain, I would find a great fortune. If the pill he gave me was real, then this seed must be real too, I whispered. I knelt in the dirt, dug a small hole with my bare hands, and dropped the seed in. I covered it with fresh soil, patting it down gently. I stood up, thinking I should probably find some water. Pop! I froze. The clump of dirt I had just placed over the seed was pushed aside. It sprouted. I gasped. Already. I dropped back to my knees, eyes wide. The tiny green shoot didn't just break the surface. It started growing right in front of me. Stalks shot up, leaves unfurled, and flowers bloomed and faded in seconds. Within moments, a mature bean plant stood 4 feet tall. Its leaves were so green they looked like they were dripping with liquid emeralds. 3 pods hung from the branches, translucent and glowing like fine jade. Is this the fortune Grandpa talked about? I reached out, my heart racing, wanting to touch the pods. Little fellow. A beautiful, melodic voice echoed from the plant. A cloud of milky white mist drifted out from the stalks, swirling in the air until it took the shape of a stunningly beautiful woman standing right in front of me. Don't be in such a hurry to pick them, the lady said, her smile sweet and calm. I stood there like a complete idiot, my mouth hanging open. My brain was screaming, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Are you a monster? Or an immortal? I finally managed to stammer out. I tried to sound steady, but my voice shook like a leaf in the wind. She looked at me thoughtfully, a bitter smile touching her lips. An immortal? Perhaps I was once. Now, I am nothing more than a stray fragment of a soul, clinging to life inside this being. She noticed the terror in my eyes and softened her expression. Don't be afraid, little one. I won't hurt you. In fact, I can't. I've appeared now because I want to make a deal with you. A deal? I asked, my confusion overriding my fear. My name is Chu Lingyu, she began, her voice tinged with a deep, ancient sadness. 600 years ago, I was betrayed by my enemies. My body was sealed away, and my soul was shattered. Only this tiny fragment escaped by hiding inside this being. For centuries, this seed traveled tens of thousands of miles until it ended up in your grandfather's hands. He passed it to you, and today, you planted it in this spiritual soil. You gave me the chance to see the light of day again. I looked at the glowing plant, then back at her. If I hadn't made it onto the mountain, would you have stayed inside that bean forever? Yes, she nodded. And not just stayed there. In another year or two, Once the spiritual energy in the seed dried up, my soul would have faded away into nothing. She didn't try to hide the truth from me. I like that. Even though I was only a boy, I had grown up fast, and I knew how to listen for the catch. So, what is this deal you mentioned? I asked. She pointed to the plant. There are 3 pods on this stalk. I want to ask if you would take only one. Leave the other 2 for me. I blinked, looking at the translucent green pods. Wait, based on what you said, only I can pick these, right? Chu Ling, you looked surprised. A flicker of admiration crossed her face. Your grandfather, Su Jian, can rest easy in the afterlife with a grandson as sharp as you. You're right. Only the person who plants the seed can harvest its fruit. I see, I said, nodding slowly. Since it's a deal, what are you offering me in exchange for the other 2 pods? She leaned in, her eyes turning serious. She wasn't looking at me like a child anymore. She was looking at me like a partner. If you leave the pods, I will tell you the secrets of this bean. More importantly, I will give you a medicinal recipe that can help someone with a spirit bone like yours actually practice cultivation. My heart leaped. A way to actually practice? My eyes must have lit up because she smiled. How can I trust you? I asked, trying to keep my voice flat. I can give you the recipe first, she said. Try it. If it works, we finish the deal. If not, you've lost nothing. I stared into her eyes for a long time. They were clear and honest. Finally, I nodded. No need to test it. I agree. She seemed taken search. Just like that? You aren't afraid I'm lying. My grandfather told me that planting this bean would bring me a great fortune, I said firmly. I think you are that fortune. Chu Ling, you laughed, a bright, melodic sound. You certainly have a way with words, little guy. You're much smoother than your grandfather was. You knew my grandfather well? I asked. She didn't answer directly. I don't have much time to stay outside. Let's talk about the bean first. I didn't push her. I just sat down on the dirt, crossing my legs, ready to listen. That seed is called a Xidigarba fruit, she explained. It is an incredibly mysterious spiritual object. When planted in an immortal mountain, it uses the mountain's spiritual energy as a foundation to breed unique treasures inside its pods. You mean, I interrupted, that if I planted this on a different mountain, the treasure inside would be different? Exactly, she said, looking impressed. Every mountain has a different soul, a different flow of energy. Just like people. Because of that, the Xidigarba fruit produces different treasures depending on where it grows. I looked at the humble bean plant with newfound awe. This wasn't just some magical snack. It was a treasure generator. Pick one pod and open it, she commanded. I reached out, carefully plucked one of the 3 pods, and cracked it open. I expected to see beans. Instead, a row of shimmering, crystal-clear beads rolled into my palm. They glowed with a soft, internal light. What are these? I whispered. Spirit crystals, she said confidently. They are the condensed essence of the spiritual energy in this soil. When you practice, hold one in your mouth. Combined with the recipe I give you, even someone with a white bone will be able to cultivate at high speeds. Really? The word escaped me before I could stop it. Cultivating with a white bone isn't actually impossible, she said with a shrug. It's just that in this era, most of the ancient techniques have been lost. People have forgotten how. To be honest, these crystals are actually the lowest grade of treasure the Xidigarba fruit can produce. This soil is quite poor, so the treasure is simple. If it had grown longer, or in a better place, it might have become a true magical weapon. I looked toward the higher, mist-covered peaks in the distance. So if I planted this on the main peak, it would have been even better? You catch on fast, she smiled. If I weren't just a soul fragment, I'd take you as my disciple. I rubbed the back of my head, feeling a bit embarrassed by the praise. But, she continued, if we want the next harvest to be even more powerful, there is something we need to do. What is it? I asked. First, pick the remaining 2 pods. Hold them in your hands. I didn't hesitate. I trusted her now. I reached out, plucked the last 2 green pods, and held them tight. I didn't hesitate. I reached out, plucked the last 2 green pods, and split them open. Just as Lingyu had said, they were filled with those same soybean-shaped spirit crystals. I carefully tucked my share away, then held out the remaining crystals to her. I wasn't greedy. If I promised someone something, I gave it to them. I wouldn't take a single extra grain that wasn't mine, but I wouldn't give away what I'd earned, either. Ling Yu watched me, nodding silently. I could tell she approved of my directness. She didn't say it, but I felt her respect. She leaned in and took a deep breath. With a soft whistling sound, the crystals in my palm dissolved into streaks of purple mist. They flowed into her mouth like rivers returning to the sea. As she inhaled the essence, her translucent figure began to solidify. She no longer looked like a flickering candle in the wind. Her features became sharp and clear. "Thank you, Taiping," she said, her voice sounding much stronger. "You've saved a bit of my life today." "Don't mention it, sister," I replied calmly. "This was our deal." She nodded, then pointed toward the ground. "Look at the plant now. What do you see?" I looked down and gasped. The vibrant, leafy plant from a moment ago was gone. In its place stood a withered, brown stalk. It looked like a common dead weed. "It's dead," I said, my heart sinking. "How are we supposed to get more seeds if the plant is withered?" I wasn't panicking yet. I knew she had a plan. Ling Yu smiled. "This is the second thing I need you to do," she explained. "The Xidagarba fruit withers the moment the last harvest is gathered. It won't grow back next year on its own. To make it fruit again, you must use rootless fire to burn it to the ground." "Burn it?" I asked, surprised. "Yes. We call it seed burning. Once it turns completely to ash, the new seeds will take form within that residue." I processed this, but one phrase stuck in my mind. "Sister, what exactly is rootless fire?" She looked pleased that I was asking questions. Rootless fire is a flame that doesn't need fuel like wood or oil to burn. There are two kinds. One is born from nature, called spirit fire, but those are incredibly rare. The other is created by cultivators using their internal energy. We call that true fire. She paused, making sure I was following. "Since you won't find spirit fire lying around, you'll need true fire. Usually, it's stored inside magical treasures or specialized talismans." I realized then that she wasn't just giving me instructions. She was teaching me how to be a cultivator. "Thank you for the guidance," I said, bowing slightly. "So, you want me to find a true fire talisman?" "Exactly," she said. "They aren't incredibly rare, but you're broke. You have two choices. Either reach a high enough cultivation level to produce the fire yourself, or work this herb garden until you earn enough merit points to buy a talisman. There's no rush." "I understand," I said firmly. "I'll work hard at both. I'll get that fire." Ling Yu smiled at me. I was only a teenager, but I think she saw a spark of determination in me that reminded her of someone from her past. "Come closer," she whispered, beckoning me with a finger. "Is there something else?" I stepped forward, curious. Suddenly, she reached out and tapped my forehead with her fingertip. A cooling sensation washed over my brain, sharp and refreshing. Images and text began to flood my mind, forming a clear recipe on a white parchment in my head. "The bone-washing marrow-refining soup," I muttered, reading the title. My heart leaped. A recipe that actually lets someone with a white bone cultivate. "Don't get too excited yet," she warned, throwing cold water on my joy. "This soup was meant to be used with another medicine, but the ingredients for that one are far too expensive for you. Without the second medicine, using this soup will be difficult." "How difficult?" I asked. "It will be excruciating," she said gravely. "It will feel like a blade is scraping against your very bones." I didn't even blink. I'm not afraid of pain. She looked like she wanted to tell me I didn't know what I was talking about, but something in my eyes stopped her. "I'm in a good mood today," she said suddenly. "I'll give you one more gift." She clenched her hand, and ribbons of white light began to spiral into her palm. As she gathered the energy, her body grew faint and transparent again. She was exhausting herself for this. When she opened her hand, 3 shimmering, crystalline beads sat in her palm. Before I could ask what they were, she flicked her wrist. The beads shot out like bullets, landing in 3 different corners of the garden. She began to chant a soft, rhythmic incantation. Faint green light erupted from the spots where the beads landed, connecting into a glowing, triangular formation that covered my entire plot of land. "This is the minor 3-talent spirit gathering array," she panted. "It's not a master-level array, but it will be enough to protect your garden. In 1 year, your harvest will triple." Immortal Ling Yu explained this to me, her voice sounding weak and strained. She had exhausted herself setting up that array. "Triple," I repeated. My eyes lit up with excitement. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the 4 soybean-sized spirit crystals I had left. I held them out to her with both hands. "Immortal, please take these," I said. "My grandfather always told me that when you make a deal with someone, fairness is the most important thing. Otherwise, it won't last." Lingyu looked at my dead serious expression and burst out laughing. But she quickly composed herself and looked at me with a soft, earnest gaze. "You're right," she said. "A deal should be fair. However, you're going to need these crystals for your upcoming cultivation. Consider them a loan from me. When the Empire produces more treasures, you can pay me back then." I thought about it for a moment and nodded firmly. "Then I must pay you interest. When I return them, I'll give you 5 spirit crystals instead of 4. "Not bad. Not bad at all," she chuckled, covering her mouth. "Interest it is." As she laughed, her body flickered again. She was becoming even more transparent, her aura fading by the second. "Little Tai Ping," she said, her voice turning serious. "This remnant soul of mine is too weak. I need to return to the Earth Treasury Fruit to rest and recover. I'll be gone for at least a month or 2. She gave me a playful, warning look. "The garden and your cultivation are all up to you now. Don't let me down. I'm counting on that fruit to help me regain my true form." "Don't worry, Immortal," I promised, my gaze steady. "Cultivation is my own responsibility. I won't hold you back." "Well said," she replied, looking satisfied. "The path of cultivation is a lonely one. Others can help you for a moment, but they can't help you for a lifetime. In the end, you have to rely on yourself." She pointed toward the withered stalk of the soybean plant on the ground. "Go inside and find a shovel. Dig up that root and bury it right in the center of the garden." I nodded and turned toward the house without a second thought. The moment my back was turned, the gentle smile vanished from Lingyu's face. Her eyes turned sharp and cold. She whipped her head toward the courtyard wall. Following her piercing gaze, a pair of eerie blue eyes could be seen peeking over the edge of the wall, spying on the garden. The creature realized it had been spotted and tried to scramble away, rolling off the wall. Lingyu's misty form suddenly transformed into a violent gust of wind. She blurred across the yard and struck the figure, sending it flying backward. "Great Immortal, have mercy! Have mercy!" a voice shrieked. It was a corpse ghost. Its skin was a sickly iron gray, its flesh rotting away to reveal flashes of white bone. It groveled on the ground, trembling. "I am just a lowly ghost. I was forced into this by the Green Wind Tiger Lord. He sent me here to do harm. Serving a tiger and harming the innocent," Lingyu hissed. "Scum like you are all the same." She raised her hand to strike, her demeanor completely different from the woman who had just been joking with me. She looked like a goddess of execution. But then, she hesitated. "Wait," she whispered to herself. "My strength hasn't recovered yet. If I kill this ghost, I might provoke the tiger demon before I'm ready. That would only bring trouble to Tai Ping." She lowered her hand, a small, clever smile playing on her lips. "Better to use a confusion curse. I'll make it forget what it saw here today. Later, when Tai Ping's cultivation has progressed, he can hunt that tiger himself. It will be good practice for him." She reached out and tapped her finger against the ghost's forehead. A milky white light flared, forming a glowing rune on the creature's brow before sinking into its skull. The corpse ghost stood up, its eyes blank and glassy. It looked right through Lingyu as if she weren't there. "Why did I trip and fall here?" the ghost muttered to itself, turning to leave. "Whatever. I need to report back to the king. I'll tell him a new little cultivator has arrived at the bamboo residence to watch the garden. We'll wait until the spirit herbs are ripe, then we'll come back and take the herbs and his heart."